This is not just driving traffic. This is actually driving inquiries and likely ultimately bookings as well. And I really need to dig into this more if this is a place that people are looking for help. So that's kind of my angle and how I've been looking at ChatGPT and AI tools. I want to understand them from a search perspective, not just, how to integrate AI into our own businesses, but how do we as business owners get into the results when people ask ChatGPT for a wedding service?
Hey everybody, Eddie Babbage here, founder, CEO of Timeline Genius, your host of the Wedding Industry Insider podcast. I'm here with one of my favorite people in our industry, Sara Dunn. Sara Dunn is a digital marketing expert and a self-dubbed geeky best friend. She demystifies the principles of SEO, and she has experience working with manufacturing companies, accounting firms, contractors, but she found her calling in helping creative entrepreneurs navigate the technical side of branding and web design. Sara, she's also just always got a positive, amazing, wonderful energy. I always love talking to you, Sara. So thank you for coming on the podcast here.
Oh, well, thank you for that warm intro. And it is so nice to be back on the podcast. I don't know if you know this, but this was my first wedding industry podcast
Is that
that
right?
I was ever on. Yes.
All right.
Sent you a cold email and said, hey, I've got some things to say about SEO for the wedding industry. And you so graciously had me on. I think that was like 2018. So it's been a long time.
Well, I remember that, and I definitely really just benefited significantly from every interaction we've had. It's funny, I was on as soon as we got on and I saw you, like, I feel like, there's like an energy that people have that you can feel. Every time I'm talking to you, Sara, you just have this like wonderful, just positive, happy like energy about you. And I just appreciate that so much. I love it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I really enjoy what I do. I am a geeky best friend because I am just like around geeking out on my work at all times. So when I get to see you and wonderful people who are making a difference in the industry, like that really does light me up. And I love what you all do at Timeline Genius. So always great to catch up and hear about the fun things you're working on.
Absolutely. And people should know, given that I told you this in our pre-interview, I say air quotes because I didn't do the normal sort of more extensive pre-interview that I would do, because I know you, I've worked with you. Like you said, we've known each other for years. What I want people to know before we just kind of get into this is, um, uh, you are actually one of the few people that I have personally invested for our company in hiring, and you did amazing work with Timeline Genius. So yeah, I just, oftentimes I sing people's praises, but in your case in particular, I can be like, no, I actually worked with you. You are a total rock star, and everybody is very lucky that they're about to hear you for free for the next hour, share tips and tricks for leveling up their business. What I want to do to kind of tee things up, Sara, is for those that don't already know you, and I know some people listening do, but for those that don't, can you just give a little sense of your background, an overview, and maybe tell us how you got where you currently are in the industry?
Yeah, it was actually fun to hear your version of my bio because I don't talk a lot anymore about where I came from before I started doing wedding industry SEO. I've been doing wedding SEO since 2017, but prior to that, my story is a little different than a lot of service providers to the industry because I wasn't a wedding pro myself. I actually was a digital marketer. I ran a digital marketing agency and mostly worked with small to medium sized businesses in Southwest Michigan, where I'm from. So it was manufacturers and dentists and law firms and those kind of local businesses. And I did anything they asked me to do. It was like that young and eager, okay, like if you'll pay me for it, I'll figure it out kind of energy. You need me to send an email newsletter? I'll figure out how that works. You want to run a Facebook ad? Sure. I don't know anything about that, but I'll figure it out. And one of those things that I got asked about in doing a web design project was, can you figure out how to get our site to rank on Google? Like getting found on search engines is really important. Can you figure that out? And I was like, of course, why not? I'll try to figure that out. And so here I was in 2012, 2013, and I was watching every YouTube video. I was reading all sorts of written articles because that was where we got most of our information at those times, and downloading white papers and crazy things to try to teach myself SEO. And it became one of my favorite things that I got to do. Here's the thing about SEO is there really is a scoreboard and there really is a winner. And as someone who is competitive but not athletic, SEO became my sport. I'm like, how high can I get? How many clicks can we get? How much traffic can we get for free? And it just was so fun. And so SEO actually became a core part of every web design project that I did. And everything kind of changed and shifted when I did my first SEO project for a wedding planner. So that happened in 2017. It was so fun. It was so rewarding. Loved the content. It was a lot better than doing SEO for electricians and insurance agents and those kind of businesses. And I said, I just want to do this every single day. So helping with search for wedding professionals is what lights me up. It's now all that I do. It's all I've done for 7 years now. And I still just find new things about it that are interesting and different and challenges that we need to overcome in order to stay at the top of the results.
I love that, Sarah. And you know, it's funny as you were talking, I feel like there's a hidden lesson in your story, which is I think sometimes we can sell ourselves short and say, I don't know anything about SEO, and there are people out there that do that. But actually, you know, we can teach ourselves, we can learn, we can get better at things if it's something that interests you. I don't encourage anybody as a business owner to feel like you got to go learn how to do every aspect of your business, because if you do, you're never going to get far. But when there is a field that's like important for your business growth, you know, and you start diving into it and you enjoy it, like we can really do that and grow. Um,
Yeah. I
what are
agree. And I think maybe like one of the lessons too is I'm really glad in the beginning of my business that I just kind of said yes to a lot of things instead of at the beginning being like, oh, I'm just going to do this one thing. I'm
Mhm.
really glad that as I got started, I was like, yes, I'll try that. Yes, I'll do that. And then I went, you know what? I know a little bit about a lot of things, and I can make an informed decision about what I actually want to focus on and what brings me the most joy. So I think that's kind of a general business lesson, like, try new things and see what really appeals to you.
Absolutely. And you know, you mentioned that you kind of lit up when you started working with wedding planners and wedding pros. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Like, what is it about working with them that lights you up?
Oh, I love the beautiful and creative aspect of what wedding pros do. There's so much content that we have to work with when we do marketing or SEO for the wedding industry. So you're creating beautiful visual assets all the time that other industries don't have in their marketing. I'm doing marketing for an electrician. We've got no photos to use, we've got no content that's really interesting to write about.
Mhm.
When we're doing SEO for the wedding industry, we have beautiful stories to tell. We have great imagery and video that we're able to incorporate. And so, I mean, the topic, first of all, is just more fun and more interesting. Now, I've also realized since getting started, that kind of was what let me up, that I got to work with such beautiful things. But what I've realized is that search can have such a significant impact on a wedding professional's business. And that's what really keeps me going in this field, because search is such a major way that engaged couples are searching for vendors to hire. They're searching for information. And what's really unique about the wedding industry is the fact that you need a new roster of clients every single year. So you have to be connecting with them on an ongoing basis at that moment when they're actually looking to hire someone who offers your service, or at that moment they need the advice that you're uniquely positioned to offer them. So, search is kind of one of those only things that you can do that keeps paying off year after year with each group of clients that you bring in, because every single year you've got a new group of people that are searching for a Nashville wedding planner or a Michigan wedding venue or something like that. And so if you can stay in the top of the search results or get recommended by the AI tools, that's something that can pay off for years and continue to bring in clients. So I get to really feel that the work that I do has a lot of impact and helps someone to really build a business over time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Sarah. I always say, and this sounds philosophical and slightly woo woo, but with each passing year that I feel like I'm blessed to have on this earth, it becomes more meaningful and concrete to me, which is we're all here to serve other people. And
Mm-hmm.
you've found a way to kind of marry your talents and the idea of like delivering impact for people, like positive change that's, I mean, that's transformative. I talk to wedding planners all the time, and I know even for successful planners, one of those deep kind of hidden anxieties is, yeah, this was a great year, but what about next year? Like there's no guarantee, right? But you're helping with that, which is so cool. um,
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about, and we're gonna kind of weave our way through a number of topics here, but I think I told you I heard, and I can't remember who said it, but somebody said, "Oh, I heard Sara Dunn talking about AI. Eddie, like you got to get her on the show." And AI for me as a tech entrepreneur right now is I'm living it, I'm breathing it, I'm reading books about it, I'm watching all the videos. We're rolling out features on Timeline Genius. Like it's such a powerful society and world changing, hopefully on the whole for the better, technology and trend that's happening. And I feel like the world is changing in just unprecedented ways. So I'm not surprised that you, being the ever, constant learner that you are, that you have some thoughts about AI. Can you just kind of, let's open up the floor and have you start talking about how AI is now impacting your work in SEO?
Sure. I think a lot of us as users of AI, like a chat GPT or a similar tool, we're starting to turn to that tool as kind of like our buddy, our assistant on many, many things we do in our life. I've got a business coach and she's like, before I do anything, I put it into chat GPT and just like leave it there, even if I just need to reference it later. I'm like, I don't know if I have it up quite that much, but I know that a lot of people do, whether they're in tech or they're just someone who's trying to get through their day and make their life a little bit easier. So we're actually seeing engaged couples starting to use AI tools to support them in their wedding planning process. So this first came up to me when I was taking a look through Google Analytics for a client. Google Analytics is a tool that lets us see where website traffic comes from. And I started noticing that chatgpt.com was actually a referrer of traffic to one of my clients' websites. I was
Mm,
like, oh, that's really interesting.
mm,
The original versions of ChatGPT didn't really offer you links to resources, but that has become more common in ChatGPT answers as they can give you reference links to actually click through and go in different places. And so I just kind of put that in the back of my mind. I was like, this is interesting. Let's see if this is a trend or if this is a one off. And I started noticing it in more and more of my clients' data. And then we actually had a part of Google Analytics that was able to track inquiries for one of our wedding planner clients. And I started seeing that inquiries were actually being tracked from ChatGPT. So
yeah,
people literally clicked from chatgpt.com,
mm,
went to the inquiry form, and filled it out and made an inquiry for wedding planning services. And I was like, okay,
wow.
this is not just driving traffic. This is actually driving inquiries and likely ultimately bookings as well. And I really need to dig into this more if this is a place that people are looking for help. So that's kind of my angle and how I've been looking at ChatGPT and AI tools. I want to understand them from a search perspective, not just, how to integrate AI into our own businesses, but how do we as business owners get into the results when people ask ChatGPT for a wedding service. So I had eventually, a more concrete example, I actually had a student in my wedding SEO course, and she posted in our Facebook group and said, "You won't believe this. I just booked a client who found me on ChatGPT."
Mm-hmm.
And she wisely asked that client, "Well, what did you type in to find me to begin with?" And
Mm-hmm.
that client generously was like, "Here's exactly what I asked for." And it was a list of criteria. It was like, someone who makes me feel comfortable in front of the camera, who's located in this place, who, I think pricing maybe was one of the criteria. And
Mm-hmm.
so it wasn't a simple search like we've always seen people do on traditional search engines. It was a multifaceted and detailed search,
Mm-hmm.
trying to get the tool to bring in a lot of different factors. And I was like, I can see from an engaged person's perspective why this would be really helpful. Now, I've since done hundreds of test searches like that. And I will say it doesn't always come up with a very good or relevant answer. I
Right.
mean, we're still getting recommendations for businesses that are closed or
Yeah.
not located in the place that we asked for. But I
Yes.
have to believe it's going to get better, and that people will be able to use these tools to find venues, vendors with a really specific list of criteria of what they want. And I want to make sure my clients and students, when they're a fit, show up there. So that's what I've been obsessed with recently myself.
Well, I love that, Sarah, and I'm not going to go too far down this rabbit hole because we'd look up and I'd just talk for like an hour. But I'm squarely in that camp, like your colleague, who at this point, I mean, it just has been this slippery slope. You start using it, and the more you use it, and the more information that you give it, the more useful the tool becomes. I mean, just a quick little aside for people listening: if you're a wedding planner, I mean, that $20 a month or whatever subscription to ChatGPT is just worth its weight in gold. I mean, I've taken all of the financials for Timeline Geniuses and up, like last night, I was just up having a strategic planning session on ChatGPT about what should my priorities be, for the business over the course of July. Like, there's so much you can do. And yet, you're exactly right. There are these fundamental, simple ways in which it still hallucinates and gives us just completely false information. So you still have to kind of have this lens. But, again, I won't digress too much, but I certainly encourage everybody to just start using it because it's such like a powerful tool. So
Oh
for
yeah. I always see chat gpt every time I go back and forth. I want to know if it does this to you. Mine is always super encouraging. It tells me like that
oh,
I'm so right all the
oh yeah,
time.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so I mean, I think we do need to be careful about
yeah,
just believing everything it
correct,
says,
100%.
because it'll change your mind, change its mind if you tell it it's wrong.
No, it
So
will.
yeah, we got
Yeah,
to be
that's
so
smart.
careful about
You
it.
do.
And I did a workshop on using AI for writing blog content, and
Yeah,
I did a demo. Now this was months ago, so I'm just going to give that caveat that it
yeah,
may
yeah,
have
yeah.
improved since then.
Sure.
But when I did this example, I said, write me 1,000-word blog post about this wedding venue. It's a wedding venue I'm familiar with. It's here in Southwest
Yeah.
Michigan. I said, write me 1,000-word blog post about this venue. And it wrote 1,000 words about a venue, and it sounded right. But because I've been there and I know things about the venue, I was like, this is not accurate. It said that it had a grand ballroom for the reception space. It actually doesn't have a ballroom. It said that people love photography by the fountain. It doesn't have a fountain. So we have to remember that we've got to fact check if we're using it for anything that is like generative or anything we're going to publish, because it really could just be making it up.
Yeah, it's weird. You're so right, and I'm really glad you said that, Sarah, because it's not enough. It's a very meaningfully incomplete story to just be like it's amazing, because like then you could just like take it and start relying on it and be like, wait a minute, I thought it said this and now I look silly. I think it is such an important point, and I need to layer that in with any of my raving. It is weird. It's like, on the one hand, it's smarter than any human alive and can do things that none of us can do, but on the other hand, it just will flat out. I had the same thing. I was getting recommendations for like webinar partners and stuff, and it was giving me the name of somebody that didn't exist. And then I love when you're like, hey, I don't think that's right. It's like, you got me, you're right. like,
Yes.
like, I'm gonna fix that right now for you. Here's the correct answer. I'm just
I'm
like,
like, I still don't believe you, ChatGPT.
yeah, no, it really is. I think, yeah, there is this art, and I'm sure, as the years, very, very intelligent people are working day in, day out. Untold sums of capital are going toward improving these technologies. But yeah, even in its current state, there are just, I mean, so many random things. I had a friend of mine that was going for a job interview. Literally in a matter of 15 minutes of like ChatGPT research, he learns the ins and outs of this position. I mean, he went from like a 1 on a 1 to 10 scale of like knowing what the job entails to like a 10, got the job that week. Like, I mean, it's just, and I was like, back in the past, I mean, I'm a kid of the 80s and was interviewing and stuff back in the day in the 90s. You had to like get books and have practice interview. It was like, do you want practice interview questions? And just, but yeah,
That's so good.
but for you, for again, to kind of bring it back to the context of SEO, it's really interesting to hear. It makes sense. This is changing the game for search engine optimization. But what do we do with that knowledge, Sarah? Like, how do we start optimizing to show up in chat GPT searches?
Yes. Okay. So I have a couple thoughts on this. And the first thing that I want to say off the top is that ChatGPT search and AI search is definitely the hot topic of the moment. But I want everyone to keep in mind that traditional search engines are still very widely being used. So even though the hype out there is, everyone's leaving Google, everyone's going to AI search, when I look at the data in the wedding industry, that's not really true. So the client that I told you about that got 2 inquiries from ChatGPT in a month, that same month she got 122 inquiries from Google.
Sure.
So there's still a lot of benefits to paying attention to traditional SEO and watching your rankings on traditional search as well. So don't lose sight of that, kind of following the shiny object, but definitely keep in mind that there's still opportunity with Google and traditional search. Now, the great news about showing up in AI based search engines is they actually follow a lot of the same practices that we've already done. So, optimizing for traditional SEO will actually positively benefit you in how often you show up in AI related search as well. Because ultimately, what all of these systems are looking for is, does what you offer match what the searcher is asking for? And a
Hmm.
lot of that comes down to really close match between what someone asks for and what you've written on your website and what other people have written about you on other websites when they talk about you. So, we've always talked about keywords, right? So, something like Nashville wedding planner. It's still really important to use a keyword like that on your homepage because people are going to AI tools and they're still asking, I need a wedding planner for my wedding in Nashville. And so if you say I'm a Nashville wedding planner, you have a much better chance of the search engine being like, ooh, this website is a good fit for that.
Hmm.
Ooh, okay, that's perfect. So, just like I've been telling everyone for 7 years, we can't just use fluffy descriptive language like we plan meaningful celebrations. Yes, you can say that as a tagline, but you still need to have more search focused phrases included on your website as well. So make sure you're still thinking about keywords, key phrases, and what the average person would actually be searching for. And I want you to use the most important keyword that you have on the homepage of your website. It's usually a location plus a service keyword. Nashville wedding planner or Michigan wedding venue, something like that, really is helpful if people turn to a search tool and they're looking for a business that matches that. So be really clear in your language and always be listening to the way that your ideal clients describe what you have to offer. We in the wedding industry tend to make up words that engaged couples don't know. Month of coordination is one, event management, services like that, that within the industry, we know what that means. We know that it's a more intensive version of a coordination service. but people are still searching, whether it's ChatGPT or traditional search engines, they're looking for wedding coordinator. And so if all you talk about is event management, you're not going to show up or be recommended in the search. So you've really got to pay attention to what people are actually asking you for, what they're looking for in the inquiries, the words they use in their reviews when they are finished working with you, and make sure that you are using a lot of the same language that your ideal clients are also using. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense, Sarah, and I'm so glad that you made the point that you led off with. Like, obviously, like Google hasn't gone anywhere, and if anything, they're folding, the AI into the platform, but people are still using Google left and right. I'm so glad you said that. Um, I'm going to hit the AI thing from another angle too, real quick. One of the things that we all hear about for SEO is that content is good, right? Like some would say content is king, right? So, like the blog post that you alluded to, um, especially given the sort of concern that you laid out, like the AI making stuff up, how or do you recommend that wedding planners use AI to, if they have a blog, to create the content for that blog? Like, what's the right way to use AI for that?
Yeah. So a lot of people come to me and they ask me, Sarah, is Google trying to find AI generated content? And if I put it on my website, will I get penalized? So if I use an AI tool like ChatGPT to write a blog post for me, is that like instant SEO death? And the good news is it's not. So Google actually has made statements about AI generated content and has said that they don't care if the content on your website is human generated or AI generated, as long as it is helpful for the end searcher. And they've added a little bit of an extra caveat, and they've started to really talk about unique content that provides original value. And that's the part, as an SEO full time, I went, I think we need to zoom in on that a little bit. So it needs to be helpful and it needs to be unique and original. And here's my theory on that statement is they're basically telling us, go ahead and have AI tools generate your content, but you better bring something new to the table in that content. So what we can't do is turn to the AI tool and give it a really generic prompt without any of our own unique expertise as part of it. So I gave the example, write 1,000-word blog post on Greencrest Manor wedding venue. That is not going to come out with anything unique or original because it's just using the information it already has. If we're going to use a tool to develop something like this, then I want you to actually put in your prompt some of your own unique perspective. Hey, we're going to write a blog post about Greencrest Manor wedding venue. Here is some information about the venue, and here are a list of my favorite things about this venue. Here's an insider tip that I know because I've worked there 6 times. Here's some more information that I got from the venue manager, things that aren't already on the internet. Here's what I would recommend that a couple budget if they're going to have a wedding here based on my experience. So you have to bring in your own expertise into the topic if you want it to actually work and rank on Google. Otherwise, Google's going to look at it and go, we've already got that information on the venue, or we've already got that information about this planning tip, and it's not going to work. So you can't kind of sit back and be like, this is great, I'm going to generate 100 blog posts this week and put them on my site and it's going to help my SEO. It's not that easy. You still have to be a partner with your AI writing tool and really put it in your voice and bring your own unique perspective to the content.
As a wedding planner, you know how important it is to create detailed wedding day timelines for your events. But creating your timelines can be a tedious and time-consuming job. Until now. Because Timeline Genius lets you create beautiful, detailed wedding day timelines with ease. And it keeps everything you need on the wedding day in one central place. Here's how it works. First, Timeline Genius saves all your clients, vendors, and venues in your Rolodex, so you don't lose time looking for their information. And when you're ready to create a new timeline, you simply enter the key information for your wedding. Click a button, And voila! Timeline Genius magically gives you a customized timeline for your event, where all the details are laid out and the times are calculated for you. From there, you can easily edit your timeline by adding or deleting items, inserting images, changing font styles, and customizing everything to your liking. You can also instantly shift the times for as many items as you want. And when it comes to your clients and vendors, Timeline Genius lets you give them the highest level of service. You can send them tailored timelines, showing only the items they're involved in. And you can collaborate by inviting them to a mobile-friendly, web-based version of the timeline. You can even set text message reminders to automatically go out on the wedding day. And once you've completed your perfect timeline, you can download it or email it out as a beautifully styled PDF. And that's Timeline Genius, a smart software that will help take your wedding planning to the next level. Start your free trial today.
That is super helpful, Sarah, and it's interesting. I had this moment as you were talking where I felt nostalgic and suddenly very old. I remember when blogs first started, like when I
Oh,
was doing my first company. You do too?
yes, of
I,
course.
I totally remember when I first heard about blogs, and I got this book called Naked Conversations about blogging. And I was like, what is blogging and all of this? And now, in those days, and honestly, in all the days until relatively recently, it was a production to get something written on your blog, like to get content, like a human being, either you or somebody that you hired or worked with, had to sit down and thoughtfully craft like whatever the piece was. And you just kind of mostly, I think, spoke to my question. It's interesting because Timeline Genius has, I'll put myself out here as a guinea pig. We have a blog, and and we have an amazing content writer, Emily. She's amazing. And I've never given her the sort of mandate of, hey, Emily, let's do a blog post every day, because it's not as hard. She even if I take your advice, and I'm interested in your thoughts here, even if I take your advice and I say, okay, I can't just go have, a generic prompt, tell me top 5 tips for wedding planners. You can't do that and get anywhere. But there's a chasm between doing that and going all the way down the rabbit hole of writing blog posts the old fashioned way. Like there's a whole spectrum there. Like, what if I just spent like 10 minutes coming up with like doing a little prompt engineering and editing? Is it not in everybody's interest now to just like crank out blog posts every day and to just take the temp? I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts on that? I haven't been doing it with Timeline Genius. Are we missing out? Are the wedding pros who haven't been just cranking out blog posts, do you think we're missing out?
So, I mean, my question back to you on this idea of why don't we just post a blog post every day? My question is, could you actually create something that is unique, helpful, and interesting to the end searcher? And maybe you could. Maybe you have a
I feel
zillion
like I
ideas.
probably could, Sarah. Maybe I'm wrong. I feel like I could just go back through like podcast interviews I've done. I could, pull out a random business book that I love. And again, it won't be as simple as just like a 10-second. I've never tried it, so this is all conjecture. I don't know. But I feel like, whereas, and I'm a slow writer. I'm a decent writer, but I take, like, if I had to write my own, 1,500 word post, you'd come back and we'd all be like years older. But no, if I could sit down, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I've never done it, tried it, but it sounds
Yeah.
like you're kind of like not so in favor of that. It sounds like you're like, no, write authentic stuff. If you're using, yeah, I'll let you speak for yourself.
Yeah, in the wedding industry, what I find is that most wedding professionals aren't even blogging 6 times a year.
Right,
So all of a sudden, blogging 365 times a year
right,
looks a little bit unnatural and really isn't necessary to compete
right,
versus the other sites you're trying to get found
right,
against.
right.
So, what I tell wedding professionals is I would recommend less frequency of blogging and higher quality. I want you to go really in depth
Yeah,
on a certain topic and give that reader every bit of information you have on that topic. I also think I don't want anyone to spend too much time on things that are really generic that AI tools could kind of just take from you
Right,
and give back to the user without attributing it to you.
right.
Um, I really have focused in our SEO work and what I teach my students on topics that will actually connect them with local couples who eventually will be searching for their service.
Okay.
And so there's a lot to this that's actually about timing. So reaching an engaged person at the right time in their planning process so they can still hire you. Because as soon as they hire someone else for your service, it's too late and you've missed that opportunity. We've got to get in front of them early, and we've got to make sure they're actually local. And so if you're just writing generic things like
Yeah,
7 tips for your wedding seating chart, you're
right.
not actually going to get in front of local couples who are likely to hire you. They're usually too far in their planning process, and most of them probably aren't in your area. So even if you can do it quickly and easily, it's not providing a lot of value. It's not connecting you with people who are likely to book your service.
Yeah, it sounds like so your answer, I guess what I'm hearing, and shoot me down if this isn't the right recap, is quality over quantity. You don't need to do blogging every day. You still want original thought. Put yourself into, and your experience and your insights into what you're writing.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, would you go as far as to say, Sarah, that for the most part, every wedding planner should have a blog, or is that an
Yes.
overreach? You would say that. Interesting.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. And I'm not saying every wedding planner needs to blog every week either. I mean, 6 to 12 posts per year is what I beg my SEO students to do, including if they write them all in the off season and then just either publish them all or schedule them out for the rest of the year. And the reason for that is twofold. First, it helps your website to overall look like a better resource for searchers. So Google especially has a really hard time ranking a website that only has like 5 pages, because to the search engine, it's like, hey, this is really small. This is not a great resource, especially if the other option is a website that has a great backlog of content. It has 70 pages on it, and people tend to spend more time on that site because there's more to look at.
Mhm.
So that's the twofold part. Number one is making your website look like a better resource by having more content on it. And then the second benefit is every blog post you create allows you to potentially rank for more keywords. So it's not just about getting found for Michigan wedding planner. It's also about getting found for, what month of the year should I have a Michigan wedding? What are some great Michigan outdoor wedding venues that I can consider? So bringing in traffic from many different sources comes from blogging and having more content on your website, not just repeating Michigan wedding planner 50 times on the main pages you have. You want to expand your reach and what you get found for so you get more opportunities to make that connection.
I love that. I don't know if you know the answer to this, Sarah, and it probably varies widely depending on each person's situation. But if I'm a wedding planner listening to this right now, I'm like, hey, I'm sold. I should have a blog. It's easier to blog than ever. At least I can get a little assistance from AI if I want it. If I don't feel like I'm Shakespeare myself, I want to do it. How do I do it? Like, do you have any advice, just kind of tactically, for how people can start blogging if they don't already have a blog?
Yeah. Obviously, real weddings are the easiest place to start. So you can blog about an actual wedding you produced. What I really want to recommend if you're blogging real weddings, this is where, you're kind of telling the story of the day, but I want you to actually insert yourself in that story as a wedding professional. And this is where I think a lot of people sometimes can be successful with SEO. Like, I'm bringing in a lot of traffic, but it's not resulting in a lot of inquiries. And I look at their blog posts and I see, well, this is just Pat and Ken's story of their wedding day. You didn't
Yeah.
even mention you were the planner of this wedding. You didn't mention why decisions were made. You didn't mention all the effort that went into the design and why it's a fit for what they asked for. So when it's on your website, your marketing website, don't write that story like you're writing it for brides.com or it's all about the couple. It
Mhm.
needs to be about the couple's wedding day and your role in it, why that was important, your favorite aspects of the day. One of my favorite things that we do for planners when we write this type of blog post is we usually include a section that's called Planner's Favorite Details. And I just ask the client, like, okay, my client being the wedding planner, what were your favorite things about this? And they usually say wonderful things like, oh, we incorporated a warm chocolate chip cookie bar at the end of the night because it was the groom's father's favorite late night treat. I'm like, oh, the emotion, like, to bring that together, that's where the storytelling happens. You got this bit of information. What did you do with it to make that couple's day better? That's what's actually going to create the connection with the reader where they go, ooh, I want to work with you because you seem to really care about your client and I understand what you bring to the day. So you can't just tell the couple's story in that kind of real wedding. Really bring yourself into their story and explain how you contributed. I would say real weddings are the easiest way to get started with blogging.
That makes a lot of sense. I think what I'm going to do here, Sarah, I'm watching the time fly as it always does when we talk. Um, we've got give or take 20 minutes here. And I want to ask you, and I should just give a quick shout out to the prior interview we did. It's on our blog, blog.timelinegenius.com. Sara Dunn reveals 5 must-know SEO basics for wedding planners. So I don't want to retread the same exact ground, but I would encourage anybody who wants just sort of blocking and tackling sort of fundamentals on SEO as a wedding planner to refer to that prior interview we did because it was amazing. And what I want to ask now, Sarah, is just kind of an open-ended question. Based on all the things that have changed since the last time we did a podcast, the world is evolving for sure. What do you think we should talk about here to give as much impact and sort of actionable advice to our listeners, especially our wedding planners, in the time that we have? Like, where's your mind? Where's your head? I think these days in terms of delivering value for wedding planners.
Yeah, I think the number one thing that's important in marketing a wedding planning business is understanding what your clients want and really thinking through what might they be searching for. How can you become their trusted source for that information because they're searching, whether it's traditional search engine or ChatGPT or searching on TikTok, there are things that people want to know every single year, and so you need to have the content out there that answers those questions if they're likely to lead into an inquiry and into a booking. So, number one thing is to think about what people actually want and what they might be looking for. Now, there are tools that can help us with this. AI search is kind of a new thing, so we don't have a lot of tools that tell us what someone's typing into ChatGPT, but there are tools that tell us what people are searching for on traditional search engines. So if you do really want to show up in search, one of the number one things I want to recommend is playing around a little bit with an SEO tool. And the one that I teach on for my students is called Uber Suggest. The reason I teach on it is because they do a 7-day free trial. So if you just want to play around with an SEO tool without making a commitment to pay for it, they've got a great trial. And what I would recommend is that you go into that kind of tool and go into the keyword ideas section and just put in your location and then the word wedding. So we'll say Atlanta wedding. And then check out the related keyword ideas. So it's going to tell you how many times a month people search for Atlanta wedding, but then it's also going to say all these things are related to Atlanta wedding. And you're going to get a feel for what is actually searched the most. So you can then be like, oh, okay, I can write on this topic, or I can bring some expertise on this topic. I can do it on my blog. I can do it on TikTok. I can do it on Instagram. But that is really making informed decision making about what people are searching for in your area. You're probably going to find one of the top searches is for venues. You're going to see thousands of people a month search for Atlanta wedding venues, but they also search for unique Atlanta wedding venues, outdoor, historic. So, all sorts of more descriptive things that you could also bring into the conversation. So, I love a keyword research tool. I don't think you have to pay for one, but just to play around with one once to get some ideas and get in the searcher psyche, that can be really fun and really useful.
I love that, Sarah. I'm going to ask a related sort of question here, which is you've coached a number of people, including, Timeline Genius and many others at this point in our industry. Um, and usually when you coach, you have some people that get amazing results, some people that don't get as amazing, and then everybody in between. For the people that you're seeing in our industry that are getting those just like off the charts results, like, wow, this changed my business and my life kind of results, are there any sort of common sort of patterns that you're seeing of things that they're doing? And if so, what are they?
Ooh, I love this. I don't think enough people ask me this question because I have an answer. We do a service that's called the SEO Fix. It's a 7-day SEO setup. And some of our clients get instant and amazing results, but not everyone does. And there's one primary reason for that, and that's online reputation. It's something that in SEO and DIY SEO, I don't think enough people study. So let's think about this. So Google is given lots of options where people have used the same phrase on their website. They've said Michigan wedding planner on their website. How does Google actually decide who's the best one? Because somebody's got to win. Just like I told you earlier, there's a scoreboard, somebody's at the top. One of the main ways that Google decides if we've all used the same keyword is the number of links you have to your website, the number of reviews that you have on other platforms, these signals from around the web that actually tell the search engines if you're well known and if you know what you're doing. So I do want to bring up this concept of links. In SEO, we call them backlinks. Basically, it's when another website on the internet links into you. So it's not when you put a link on your own website to someone else. It's when other people trust you so much that they are willing to mention you on their website and potentially send their own traffic to your site. That's a big deal for a search engine. So some examples. You are in a vendor list on someone else's blog. You did a styled shoot and the photographer blogs it and credits you as the planner for that event. You now have a backlink from the photographer's website. It shows that your business is well connected in your area and that other people trust and work with you. And so when clients come to us and they have an amazing online reputation, tons of links, great reviews, they've been mentioned in the press, they've had a wedding featured on Style Me Pretty or Brides or somewhere else, but they've never done SEO. When
Right.
we put the right keywords in the right places, Google is like, we get it.
Yeah.
Like, we already knew you were amazing, but we didn't quite understand what you do. So now that we understand what you do, you're going to get to be number one on Google. Those are the businesses that get the best results. So
Wow.
if you want to pursue getting found in search, you have to also work on your reputation off of your own website and getting yourself out there and making connections. It's beyond just what you write on your own site.
That's really insightful, Sarah. Thank you for sharing. And it's funny, I have two almost seemingly contradictory sort of lines of thought that are in response to what you're saying. On the one hand, every time I start thinking about SEO and talking to people like you that know it inside out, I'm reminded that Google is very smart, right? And that in a lot of ways, their whole job is to like figure out what the reality of the situation is, right? Like, and certain people are more famous than other people, and Google should know that. And it's kind of hard to cheat the system if you're not doing things in the real world or on and offline. It's kind of hard to trick Google into thinking I'm just as famous as Barack Obama, right? Like, you're not going to do that. On the flip side, there's this other counter sort of narrative or voice in my head that's like, it's not all about the substance, right? There are people out there that are doing amazing work as planners and wedding pros, but there is this extra step that's not necessarily second nature for everybody, of like sort of self-marketing and self-promotion, asking for the links and getting, you know, your vendors and other people like in other sites to like talk about you and to put the links in there, right? It seems like that hustle piece of it and that promotional piece of it is also important.
Yeah, digital PR is really important and it's really separate from SEO. It's kind of this art of getting your name out there on other platforms. There's a lot of benefit to it other than just better SEO rankings. I actually refer my students all the time to the OFD Collective, which is
Yeah.
run by Megan Ely of OFD Consulting. And it is a service where journalists actually will connect with wedding professionals when the journalist needs a source for an article. And that takes a little bit of hustle, but this membership actually makes that connection. But you still have to turn around and respond to whatever the request is. So the journalist says, I'm writing an article all about cruise weddings. If you've planned a cruise wedding, please answer these 10 questions about cruise weddings. And then you have the opportunity to get quoted as an expert in cruise weddings, which is a big deal if you're, trying to rank as a wedding planner or trying to rank specifically as a Disney cruise wedding planner or something like that. So digital PR takes a bit of work. And that's one of the reasons that Google factors this kind of thing in because you can't really fake it that easily.
Yeah.
I don't, Google doesn't want me to show up tomorrow just because I'm good at SEO, put up a website and pretend I'm the best wedding planner in Michigan. It's going
Right.
to look at all of these other factors that show who's actually been doing this for a long time, who's got a great reputation, who has their work featured. It's not just me putting all the right keywords and, publishing 100 pages of AI generated content. Those aren't the businesses we want at the top of the search results.
Yeah, and shout out to Megan. I love her to pieces. She was one of the early people that I had, like right in the early stages of doing our podcast. But yeah, I call that out, Sarah, because I know that I sometimes can be so focused on the quality of work, you know, like this feature we're building or something, and it can sometimes be a little bit of an afterthought of, all right, well, how are we promoting this? Like, let's get the word out. And I know a lot of planners can also, like, they got into this because they love planning the wedding. They're great at getting that couple down the aisle with smiles on their face. But all this other stuff that we're talking about is a whole different dimension that's very important for people that are listening to us right now. And I ask this every time I talk to people like you, Sarah. Like, some people are maybe not in a position for various reasons to bring in outside help to level up on their SEO, and they're going to go at it alone. But for those that maybe do have the time, inclination, and resources, what is your advice to them in terms of when to think about maybe working with somebody like you? And if they did want to work with somebody like you, what are the different options they have if they're like, look, I'm never going to be half as smart about SEO as Sarah. I know I feel that way, which is why we hired you. But like, what would you say to people that, you know, are maybe thinking of hiring somebody to help?
Sure. Well, the first thing I would say is that I think SEO is extra confusing if you've never learned a process behind it. Okay, here's the keyword, here's where I put it. I teach a method that I call the fill in the blank method. It's actually a lot simpler than you would think. So I do like to encourage if anyone has more time than budget, definitely consider doing some basic SEO setup yourself. It is something, I do a monthly SEO lunch and learn. It's totally free. I teach something simple and actionable about SEO so you can make a small tweak. And so I do that every single month. So come to SEO lunch and learn and see if you can learn something that you feel like you can take action on. If you want to learn SEO with a little bit more guidance, a full process for your whole website, plus how to get more links and some of the other things we talked about today, I do have a course that walks you through specific for the wedding industry. So I really like to recommend that too before you're just like, I don't get it, it's not my thing. Well, really try it if you've got the time and see if this is something that resonates with you, because you might be like, hey, I actually get this when it's taught to me step by step. So I would encourage that.
Where can they get
Um,
that, Sarah?
That is called Wedding SEO Bootcamp. So I'd be happy to send you the link to include here, or you can search Google for Wedding SEO Bootcamp. But of course, I know that a lot of planners are super busy, and you may be a point in your business where you're like, I don't want to learn this. I don't touch my own website. Like, I just want to serve my clients, and I have more budget than I have time. We do have an SEO setup service. It's very easy and hands off for our clients, and it's done in just 7 days. And that's called the SEO Fix. So I would definitely recommend, whether you hire us or hire someone else, to consider hiring someone who really understands the wedding industry, because it's a unique industry with really unique nuances. And if you hire a generalist agency, it may not get you the results you're looking for. And I want to give you a concrete example before we wrap it up. I was doing an assessment for a wedding venue, just kind of taking a look to see what I would recommend for them as far as a service. And they were like, we've actually been paying someone for SEO every single month, and they're reporting that we're getting a lot of traffic. And I looked, and it was a lot of traffic, but it was not terribly relevant to wedding venues. So they were ranking for all these articles that were like, 10 ideas for your Austin bachelorette party, and like, ideas for seating charts and when to send your wedding invitations. I'm like, that traffic is fine, but you're not actually ranking in the top 10 for any venue related keywords. They haven't actually connected you with the searcher at the point where they're looking for what you actually have to offer. So traffic is sometimes the goal of a general SEO agency, and you really need someone that understands how to bring someone to your website at the right time so they'd actually book you for their wedding. So whoever you hire for SEO, make sure they've done wedding SEO before.
No, that's a great point, and that distinguishes you right away from the millions of people that are doing SEO and that are sending me spam emails. It's funny, I asked that question, Sarah, because every time we talk, and I'll bet people listening, especially like wedding planners, are so overwhelmed with so many different other facets of building their business and planning great weddings. You just get this voice in your head that's just like, if I could only just like clone Sarah and just have her just work with me on this. Like I think that I'm sure people kind of have that feeling.
I would love to do that. I would love to sit next to every wedding professional and take over your marketing and do all the SEO for you. But I can't do that. So I've tried to do it for as many people as possible.
Right. Well, Sarah, you've been on the show before, so you know I have one question that I ask of every guest that's ever been on here, and it is, if you could give one piece of advice to everybody listening based on where you are right now in life, and that's just aimed at helping them be as successful in life and business as possible, what would your one piece of advice be?
My advice would be to be a great listener and take good notes that you can refer back to. I've talked a little bit this conversation about listening to what your ideal clients tell you they want, using the language they use. So try to listen well, pick up on those nuances, notice the phrases that you hear all the time, and take really good notes. And now you can put all those notes into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT can help you figure out what the themes are too, which is wonderful. But it all starts by understanding what your couple wants and really listening well.
I love that. That is a great place to leave it. Sarah, if people want to reach out, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah. So I'm Sara Does SEO on basically every single platform. That's Sara, SARA, Does SEO. You'll find me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all the different places. And of course, feel free to send an email through the contact form if there's anything I can do to help.
Love it. Well, Sarah, on behalf of our whole Timeline Genius community and all of our Wedding Industry Insider podcast listeners, thank you so much for taking time to share your expertise. We're very grateful.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me back, Eddie.